What's up, YouTube, Apple Podcast, and Spotify? Bill Gates is going to save the world with magic seeds. If you've been following any news regarding Bill Gates, and you know that he's heavily involved in agriculture, the world agriculture. He's involved in policy updates and rules and regulations and all things that intertwine with how we eat in the world and where our food comes from. And what we're going to talk about this week on the podcast is what Bill Gates touts as the way to end world hunger. And he says the way that we're going to do that is with magic seeds. Bill Gates says, this is from tbsnews.net. Bill Gates says the global hunger crisis is so immense that food aid cannot fully address the problem. What's also needed, Gates argues, are the kinds of innovation in farming technology that he has long funded to try to reverse the crisis documented in a report released Tuesday by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So Gates points in particular to a breakthrough he calls magic seeds. They're crops engineered to adapt to climate change and resist agricultural pests. The Gates Foundation on Tuesday also released a map that models how climate change will likely affect growing conditions for crops in various countries to highlight the urgent need for action. It's very important to point out that Bill Gates owns the patents on all these genetically engineered seeds. He also owns patents to synthetic meats that are being developed. There's a big push by him and other elites to move away from natural meat and start producing and manufacturing and consuming synthetic meat, which is crazy to even say. I feel like we're in the Jurassic Park world. There are a lot of people that take issue with Bill Gates' push to push out these genetically engineered seeds. Gates puts himself at odds with critics who say his ideas conflict with worldwide efforts to protect the environment. They note that such seeds generally need pesticides and fossil fuel-based fertilizers to grow. Critics also contend that Gates' approach doesn't address the urgency of the crisis. Developing magic seeds takes years and won't immediately deliver relief to countries currently enduring widespread suffering because they rely on food imports or are experiencing historic droughts. While the elites and the big corporations are pushing this genetically engineered, genetically modified synthetic meat approach, the professionals at the ground level, the agricultural experts that are really involved in regenerative agriculture are starting to push back on that. And they're starting to question the wisdom of pursuing the fundamental premise that Gates has embraced. They say increasing agricultural production through the use of modified seeds along with fertilizers and pesticides. They point to the environmental footprint of the industrial agricultural, including the use of fossil fuel-based fertilizer, the degradation of soil quality, and the diminishing of biodiversity within the soil. I started to look into why Bill Gates is pushing this narrative and what's in it for him, right? How is this becoming such a popular issue? And in this article, he's quoted in saying, "We've got a combination of things that have been all bad for food availability. We have climate change, which is hurting crop production sooner than we expected." He blames the war in Ukraine that hurt food availability, but probably worse, it's making the price of fertilizer be substantially higher, which means that the poor farmers won't have access. So their yields in the years ahead will be dramatically less. How do genetically engineered seeds work? So Gates says what he calls magic seeds include maize or corn, soy that have been bred to be more resistant to hotter, drier climates, and rice that requires 3 fewer weeks in the field. These innovations will allow agricultural productivity to increase despite the changing climate, is what he says. Gene editing promises to produce super crops by altering or cutting out genes that naturally occur in plants. Unlike genetically modified plants, gene-edited crops contain no foreign DNA. GE crops are produced using CRISPR, a new tool for making precise edits in DNA. Scientists have used specialized protein to make tiny changes to the plant's DNA that could occur naturally or through selective breeding. GM crops have had foreign genes added to their DNA, a process that often cannot happen naturally. The US, Brazil, Canada, and Argentina have indicated they will exempt GE crops that do not contain foreign DNA from GM regulations. So, what it sounds like is that genetically engineered crops are going to make their way to our stores very soon if they haven't already. Although Bill Gates says that genetically engineered seeds or magic seeds could solve and be the answer to world hunger, according to Vandana Shiva, a PhD, she said, failed, clumsy, crude manipulation of living systems does not create magic seeds. It creates an ecological disaster. Andrew Liu, who is an organic farming expert, says that Bill Gates' claim that magic seeds are the problem to food hunger in the future is patently false, and an example of spin doctoring by public relation companies to rebrand products that are widely regarded as frankenfoods, Liu told the Defender. Back to Vandana, who is a PhD in environmental activist. She says natural seeds, as the source of life, are magical. They hold their implicit order within them and unfold to relocate the unique patterns and structures of life in its diversity. In contrast, Shiva says that genetically engineered seeds have been made to own life through patents. She told the Defender that genetically engineered seeds are a failed technology. Herbicide-resistant crops were supposed to control weeds. They have created super weeds. Toxin crops were supposed to control pests. They have created super pests. Increased the need for pesticides, increased farmers' debts, and driven farmers to suicide in India. She calls it a failed, clumsy, crude manipulation of living systems does not create magical seeds. It creates an ecological disaster of monocultures, of GMOs, displacing the rich diversity of crops that we need for the health of people and the health of the planet. Most of Bill Gates' technology innovations as it relates to agriculture and the genetically engineered crops have taken place in Africa. And if you go to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and look at their website, you'll see African farmers smiling, looking real happy. But I wanted to dig in a little more and find some news of what locals actually thought about what he's doing. And I couldn't find anything recent, but I found this one story that was published on July 12th in 2011. And there's this program called the Water Efficient Maize for Africa. The program was launched in 2008, right around the same time that Bill Gates started this funding in this technology innovation with magic seeds in Africa. This program was launched with the philanthropist Warren Buffett and Bill Gates, and the program is supposed to help farmers in several African countries increase their yields with drought and heat-tolerant corn varieties. But a report released by the African Center for Biosafety claims that WEMA is threatening Africa's food sovereignty and opening new markets for agribusinesses like Monsanto. So there's someone from this group, or actually a biosafety activist in South Africa. They're calling this program that's funded by the Gates Foundation a Trojan horse to open the door for private agribusinesses and genetically engineered seeds, including drought-resistant corn that Monsanto's hopes to have approved in the United States and abroad. It's pretty amazing to think that scientists are genetically engineering seeds and making them in a lab. And same thing with meat. It's fucking amazing. But I don't know if I'd want to try it. You know, I don't know if I trust that shit. If I don't know if I want to eat it. I don't want to be the first person to eat it. I'm sure I've eaten genetically modified seeds already, and I'm sure genetically engineered seeds, I'm sure some of them are in the US right now, and I've probably consumed them, but I don't want to continue that. I don't want to knowingly eat that stuff, and I want to try to avoid that as much as possible. I don't know how easy it is, but regenerative agriculture, in my opinion, is a way to ensure that you're not consuming harmful pesticides, harmful herbicides, crazy stuff that Roundup has in it, glyphosate. I think there's a cleaner way to protect the environment, to raise and care for animals, and used animals in a way to provide nourishment to the human population. I think regenerative agriculture plays into that very well. But if you listen to Bill Gates, he wants us to move away from naturally grown vegetables, naturally raised meat, and he wants us to move to synthetically raised meat. So what is synthetically raised meat, and how do they make that? The process, this is from livescience.com. It says, the process of making cultivated meat is similar to brewing beer in that this is an industrial cell culture process based on well-hewn fermentation technology. Instead of growing yeast or bacteria, the scientists grow animal cells. They start taking a small amount of cells from high-quality livestock animals like cow or chicken and then figure out which of those cells have the ability to multiply and form delicious meat food products. From there, they put the cells in a clean and controlled environment and provide them with the essential nutrients they need to naturally replicate and mature. In essence, they create the conditions that naturally exist inside animals' bodies so that the cells can continue to grow. Once the meat is ready, they harvest it, a process like a conventional meat products, and then they package or cook, otherwise prepare it for consumption. There's even some people that say that lab-grown meat, when it does reach the shelves, it could be healthier than actual meat from livestock. According to some researchers in the Journal of Scientific Research, this is due to the capability of the technology to modify the profile of essential amino acids and fats and be enriched in vitamins, minerals, and bioactive compounds. I don't want to try it. I'll let you try it first before I try it. Grace Daracha, she's the national spokesperson for the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics, agrees. She says that more research needs to be done, but it could be healthier in the long run, she says. The control factor comes into play, meaning the lab-grown meat would be created in a sterile environment versus concentrated animal feeding operations. So they're comparing genetically engineered meat to factory farming practices, which is equally as bad or is worse maybe than genetically engineered meat. Regenerative agriculture is not anything like that. I think factory farming is terrible, and the videos are horrific, and the steroids they use in the animals are all bad for you. They're bad for the animals. It's just a no-win situation. So maybe compared to factory farming, genetically engineered meat or synthetic meat is better, but I'd still rather have a regenerative raised piece of steak. So this is interesting. It says there are fewer antibiotics and environmental impacts in lab-grown meats. Moreover, the future could have science altering and controlling the amounts of fat or reducing cholesterol or even adding in heart-healthier fats instead, such as omega-3 fats that usually come from fatty fish. Fewer antibiotics. I don't want any antibiotics. I don't want anything stabbed in my meat that I have to consume. I don't want to feed that shit to my families. I'd rather have just a naturally raised piece of meat. So Gates says that rich countries should shift entirely to synthetic beef. And he has the intellectual property rights to sell them. As a food that can help fix the climate, Gates touts the Impossible Burger, a plant-based patty made from genetically engineered soy and textured with engineered yeast. That sounds delicious. Its manufacturer, the Gates-funded Impossible Foods, has 24 patents and more than 100 patents pending to artificially replicate cheese, beef, and chicken and permeate these products with manufactured flavors, scents, and textures. That's crazy. So Ginkgo Bioworks is a Gates-backed startup that makes custom organisms. Just went public at $17.5 billion. The company uses cell programming technology to genetically engineer flavors and scents into commercial strains of engineered yeast and bacteria to create natural ingredients, including vitamins, amino acids, enzymes, and flavors for ultra-processed foods. That sounds delicious and yummy. I don't think Bill Gates is a bad guy or he wants to kill the human population. I just think he wants to make money. And the way to make money is to get a bunch of scientists together and have them invent meat and create meat that they can patent and sell to the rest of us. And they can't do that with animals. I don't want to be the first person to try synthetically raised meat or seeds. I probably already have had seeds somehow, but I don't want to make this a daily habit of consuming. I'd rather have some type of naturally raised beef from a normal ranch. I don't want to eat beef that comes from a science lab. But who knows? It may actually be healthier. We may get some studies done in the next 10, 15 years, and people are actually healthier, living longer, living better lives. But until that stuff comes out, I don't want to consume it. I thought y'all would enjoy this news story about magic seeds and the future of our food systems. Hope you enjoyed it. Subscribe, like the channel, share the video. I'll see y'all next time. Love you. Bye.